Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we're unpacking a truly fascinating paradox buried within a massive community-based health study that was recently published in Frontiers in Nutrition. We often just assume that plant-based diets are inherently great for our cardiovascular systems, right? But what happens when the standardized medical tests designed to grade our diets actually end up penalizing the very people eating the most vegetables? Today, we're exploring a direct clash between metabolic reality and standardized dietary metrics. So let's dive right in. This is the central mystery we are investigating today. The researchers set out to look at exactly how vegetarians performed on comprehensive heart health tests compared to non-vegetarians. And they expected some wins for the plant-based crowd, sure. But the data threw a massive curveball. The vegetarians were absolutely crushing the physical tests, but mathematically failing the ideal healthy diet test. I mean, how is that even possible?
Section 1. The Heart Health Paradox. To unravel this whole contradiction, we really need to look at the foundation of the research. It's based on a massive cross-sectional study drawing from the MJ Health database over in Taiwan. The researchers analyzed data from 46,287 eligible participants. And let me tell you, this isn't some small, localized survey. This is a highly robust, comprehensive data set covering physical exams, blood analyses, and really detailed lifestyle questionnaires. Having a scale like this gives us a tremendous amount of confidence in the trends we're about to see. Now, from that massive pool, the researchers split the participants into two distinct groups, 1,896 vegetarians and 44,391 non-vegetarians. And it's absolutely crucial to note the strict criteria they used here. To be classified as a vegetarian in this specific study, the participant had to be a full-time vegetarian who consumed strictly 0 meat and 0 fish. So no part-time flexitarians were included in this vegetarian cohort.
Section 2. Life Simple 7.
So how exactly do you measure heart health across tens of thousands of people? Well, the researchers used a framework established by the American Heart Association known as Life Simple 7. You can kind of think of this as a universal report card for your cardiovascular health. It doesn't just look at what you eat. It combines 4 cardiometabolic risk factors, so that's blood pressure, cholesterol, serum glucose, and BMI, with 3 key lifestyle behaviors: your smoking status, physical activity, and diet. To get a passing grade on this report card, what the study officially calls ideal cardiovascular health, a participant needs to achieve an ideal rating on at least 5 of those 7 metrics. And hitting this mark is a really big deal, because previous data shows it's strongly associated with significantly lower risks for heart-related death and diabetes. It's definitely a high bar, but a vital one.
Now, what's really interesting here is how the general population naturally distributes across poor, intermediate, and ideal categories for these metrics. As you can see, hitting the ideal mark across the board is actually quite rare. For instance, while 76% of people easily hit the ideal mark for smoking status, only about 13% managed an ideal score for physical activity or the healthy diet score. It perfectly sets the stage for our comparison.
Section 3. The Vegetarian Advantage. All right, with the rules of the game established, we can finally look at the metabolic results. The researchers found that vegetarians had an adjusted odds ratio of 2.09 for overall ideal cardiovascular health. Basically, in plain terms, the vegetarians were more than twice as likely to have overall ideal heart metrics compared to the non-vegetarians. This is a profound advantage. But what specific factors were actually driving this massive win?
This advantage becomes even clearer when we break down the individual metabolic tests. The contrast in cholesterol alone is stark. 72.1% of vegetarians achieved ideal total cholesterol compared to just under half of the non-vegetarians. Statistically speaking, vegetarians had a 2.79 odds ratio victory right here. The plant-based diet, which is naturally lower in saturated fats and much higher in fiber, seems to literally translate to cleaner arteries.
And, this builds on other metabolic wins across the board. 74% of vegetarians hit an ideal body mass index, compared to 65.3% of non-vegetarians. The researchers actually noted that the high fiber content of vegetarian diets likely delays intestinal absorption, which directly contributes to a lower BMI. The vegetarian group also showed a really significant advantage in maintaining ideal fasting glucose levels.
But hey, cardiovascular health isn't just about what's on your plate, right? The vegetarian cohort also brought some significantly better lifestyle habits to the table. They had a much higher non-smoking rate. Interestingly, though, when it came down to physical activity, it was essentially a tie between the two groups. This tells us that the vegetarians aren't just out-exercising the non-vegetarians. Their health advantage is heavily tied to their nutritional and lifestyle choices.
Section 4. The Missing Fish Mystery.
Okay,
So vegetarians have better BMI, better cholesterol, better blood sugar, and they smoke way less. So they're the clear, undisputed winners, right? Well, actually, no. Despite totally crushing the physical and metabolic tests, the vegetarians absolutely bombed the ideal healthy diet score on their report card. They had an adjusted odds ratio of just 0.41. That means they were far less likely to achieve an ideal diet score than people eating meat. So the absolutely crucial point here is, how on earth can a group with such stellar metabolic health fail the diet test?
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact solution to our mystery. Let's break down the individual components of that diet score. The vegetarians actually did better on almost everything. They ate more fruits, more veggies, more whole grains, and they drank fewer sugary beverages. But if you look at that very last metric, fish intake, because they are strict vegetarians, their fish intake was mathematically 0.
This reveals a massive, almost literal blind spot in the standardized metric itself. The American Heart Association's Life Simple 7 diet score explicitly requires eating at least 198 grams of fish per week to achieve an ideal rating. The metric is hard-coded to reward fish consumption because of the well-documented cardiovascular benefits of omega-3 fatty acids. Therefore, strict vegetarians are automatically penalized, regardless of how many healthy vegetables they're eating.
Which brings us to Section 5, Rethinking Heart-Healthy Diets.
This entire paradox really forces us to step back and reevaluate how we measure health in the first place. What are the actionable takeaways from the study, and what does it actually mean for your own dietary choices? Well, the rigidity of the AHA metric highlights a specific nutritional hurdle, not necessarily a failure of the vegetarian diet itself. The biological goal of the fish requirement is just to secure omega-3 fatty acids. As the researchers point out, if you're eating plant-based, you can successfully bridge this gap. You just have to intentionally seek out plant-based omega-3 alternatives, things like flaxseed, walnuts, and canola oil, to maintain that crucial cardiovascular protection.
Even the study's own authors recognize the glaring flaw in applying a rigid, one-size-fits-all test to diverse populations. They concluded that our standard health metrics absolutely need to evolve. As plant-based diets become more and more common globally, our diagnostic tools must be sophisticated enough to accurately reflect and grade different dietary lifestyles, without inherently penalizing them for culturally or ethically driven food choices. The absolute biggest takeaway here is that a diet can be incredibly heart-healthy even if it doesn't fit perfectly into a traditional, standardized box. Whether you eat meat, fish, or strictly plants, the underlying goals remain exactly the same: high fiber, low saturated fat, and robust omega-3s. So, keeping these incredible metabolic advantages and the missing fish mystery in mind, how are you going to apply these findings to ace your own cardiovascular report card? Thanks so much for exploring this data with me today.